101.1 HIRT-AFM, Roatan, Honduras, Blue Wave Radio. Now it's time for the Roatan Real Estate Roundup, presented by RE/MAX Realty. When you want to learn about real estate, listen here. And now the host of Roatan Real Estate Roundup, Russ Regents.
Good morning, everyone. This is Russ Regents with Blue Wave Radio. Today is our newest installment of the Roatan Real Estate Roundup, sponsored by RE/MAX. And today my guest is Bruce Plunkett. Bruce, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks, Russ. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to talk with you. These are always so, I always gather so much information from our conversations. So for our audience, Bruce is a longtime resident, been here 20 plus years. And recently he moved over and joined the RE/MAX team. So he's one of the newer agents there. So he's got a great perspective of especially what goes on the island long term, as well as kind of one of the newer things that are happening in the real estate world. So Bruce, before we talk about rental markets, etc., a little bit, what brought you to Roatan? How'd you get here?
Well, that is probably the most common question that I'm asked is what brought you here and how long have you been here? So yeah, as you said, I've been here for 20 plus years. I originally came here in the mid to late 90s, and I came here originally to work with the Dolphins at Anthony Key Resort. Before that, I'm originally from Canada. I studied marine biology and psychology at university up there, and that led to the opportunity for me to work with a bunch of different animals. I worked with dolphins, I worked with beluga whales, killer whales, sea lions, seals, sharks, stingrays, all kinds of different animals. But the opportunity came up to come down here to work at this facility. And for those of you that don't know, this facility here, the Institute for Marine Sciences, is a world-class facility, and it's very unique in that the dolphins are trained to go out to the open ocean. They'll do an activity out there, they'll dive with guests, and then come back to the facility. So to work in a facility like that was, when I started working with marine mammals, I didn't even believe that was possible. So to do that, was quite rewarding. I worked with the Institute for a number of years. I was the assistant director for a number of years. I worked with Eldon Bolton, the current director, and his wife, Terry Bolton. I worked with them for a number of years. And then in 2010, or thereabouts, Anthony's Key Resort started a new facility called Maya Key, which is a cruise ship destination where guests will come off the cruise ship and spend the day. And also, Maya Key is an animal rescue and rehab facility. So I moved over there and helped manage that facility and worked with the marine mammals or marine animals that we had there. We had sea lions, so we would do interactive programs with them. We had sharks and stingrays. We set up a swim with them, which was amazing. I enjoyed every minute of that. And we also worked with sea turtles, which was probably the most rewarding thing that I did in my time there. We would work with injured sea turtles. We worked closely with Roatan Marine Park. They would bring us turtles that were in need of rehabilitation. We would rehabilitate them, hopefully to the point of releasing them, which we did quite often. The turtles that we worked mostly with were the hatchling, little tiny guys that would hatch on the beach and didn't make it into the water for whatever reason. So people would grab them and in most cases taking the marine park or bring them directly to us. We would keep them there for a while, let them build up their strength until the point where we decided that they were releasable, and we would release them back into the ocean, which was amazing. It was awesome to watch them walk down the beach and swim away. So we did that. We rehabilitated and released. In my time there, we rehabilitated and released over 100 sea turtles, which was pretty awesome. So to this day, if I'm out snorkeling and I see a sea turtle, I wonder if it's one of the ones that I had contact with when they were young. It's a pretty awesome experience. So I enjoyed my time at Maya Key as well. Then COVID hit and that kind of changed everything. So I joined the awesome team at RE/MAX just a little over 2 years ago. My wife, who was born and raised here, she is a realtor with RE/MAX as well. She's been working with RE/MAX for a little over 5 years. So we work together as a team, and nice. It's been great. It's been rewarding to help people realize their dream of owning a little piece of paradise here in Roatan.
Yeah, very much. Wow, what a story. The first thing that jumped out at my head as we were describing that is I can just see you out there snorkeling one day and, a nice, healthy 15-year-old turtle comes sliding up and say, "Hey, I know that guy. Hey, man,
Yeah.
how you doing?"
That's exactly what I think. Yes.
Hey, man, you helped me back years ago. That was great. Too funny. All right. So that's a great intro. I like that. I mean, it's lovely to hear that you came here to do good and have continued doing good all these years later. So bravo.
Thanks.
All right. So one of the things we've been talking about over the last few episodes is buying your home, building your home, your dream home here on Roatan. Sometimes that doesn't actually work that way to where you can come and live. In other words, you need a little rental income off of that home in order to help subsidize living your dream or living your lifestyle in the short term. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the rental market, specifically with Airbnb seems to be the largest, VRBO being as well. So let's just kind of jump right into it. Bruce. Rental market here, pretty active.
It's very active. It's very, very active. As you said, Airbnb is probably the most popular. VRBO is popular as well. But what happens often is people will come here, they'll come to Roatan, they'll fall in love with it, they want to buy a property here, and they want to retire here. But they realize they're not quite ready to retire, but they still see the opportunity to buy property or a home. And yeah, in the interim, they'll rent it out and hopefully make some profit, or at least enough to cover the bills, and bridge that gap between buying the property and retiring years later.
Nice. Well, and I think that's one, and I can vouch for myself. My story is relatively similar. We made that decision in 2007. We were too young at the time to fully retire, didn't have the assets needed, but we wanted that little slice of paradise, I think, like everybody does. So we went ahead and bought a condo. It was very simple. We would show up here. We would have a great time for 7, 10, 2 weeks, and just have a really good time. Over time, we decided to keep the condo because it was a good deal for us. We loved the people there, and it just helped us kind of grow our relationships here in preparation for a full-time retirement. So it's a really wise move.
Yes, I agree, 100%.
Yeah. So you mentioned Airbnb, VRBO. I know that there are some companies that are actually doing this. Airbnb you referenced was the largest. Do they dominate the market? How does that work?
Well, yeah, Airbnb is the largest. My wife and I work in property management, which is not something that a lot of realtors do, but it's something that we kind of stumbled upon. My wife sold a property actually during COVID to some friends of mine who actually contacted me at one point and said, "Hey, do you know a real estate agent?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I happen to. My wife is one." So they purchased the property sight unseen. They had been to Roatan a number of times. So they bought a property in West Bay and, built it up over time and rented it out. Yeah. So, and our property management has kind of grown from there. We've, just through word of mouth, we've helped out a few others as well. So we manage a few properties and help out with that. But yeah, Airbnb is very popular. I would say at this particular house that I'm talking about is Airbnb, probably maybe 80% of the rentals. The rest is either VRBO or private rentals.
Okay. Wow. So that's a dominant. They definitely have market share for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So let me ask you a question then. One of the things we always hear the conversation about, and in this series we've talked about, especially with building your home, always leave a little money aside for those incidentals, things that come up. In the rental property world, we see a lot of people think they can do it themselves. You see a VRBO as an example. I mean, that stands for vacation renter by owner. But here in Roatan, because of some of the issues with climate and with usage, you guys always say it's really necessary and really useful to use a property manager. Can you kind of tell me a little bit about why? I understand you guys are in that business, so your opinion is definitely one. But why is that? Why do you think it's good to have a property manager?
Well, I agree. It's very good to have a property manager on site, either living there or living nearby, or somebody that can help deal with those little problems that often come up. Some people try to do it on their own, and in cases like that, if they're doing it on their own and kind of managing it from afar, from their home in the States or Canada or wherever, they will almost always have somebody living close by that they trust, that they can send over to check on things if need be. So there's very often little things that come up. Like sometimes renters will be in a property for a week or two at a time and you won't hear anything from them. Other times there's all sorts of problems and you hear all kinds of little things that you have to deal with. So it's definitely advantageous to have a property manager that will help, take care of those little things that often pop.
Yeah, well, I think, and I'm a big believer in property management. I think it's absolutely necessary. It helped us. We were approximately our home, and most of our people have heard the story. Our home was built approximately 8 months before we moved in. And I used to have a friend come over once a week. It worked out really well because I could help pay him. It was also during COVID. So he was definitely looking for work. But in the same breath, we used to giggle because he doesn't have a washer and dryer at his apartment. So I used to tell him, hey, would you be a favor? Come over once a week. And while you're here, do your laundry. Just make sure the water system works.
Definitely a symbiotic relationship, right?
It really was. And he just got a giggle out of it. He would come over, bring the house up, get everything running. He occasionally send me pictures of him literally reading his iPad while my Wi-Fi, doing his laundry. And I just thought it was great because, to your point, you got to make sure that your house is living. A house is a living thing. So
yeah.
Yeah, too funny. All right, so quick question. Let me give you kind of a pushback question. A lot of people, and not just in Roatan, but during COVID, there were a huge amount of people in 2020 and 2021 that were stuck at home, that were bored. Rentals and people basically redid their own current homes. There was a lot of supply issues with wood and et cetera. And then a lot of times people bought Airbnbs as well and said, hey, I'm just going to keep it a rental. Rent it. The market got saturated. The market was flooded with new rentals, thus driving the rental prices down. What are some of the best practices that you see that a person who is Airbnb, that is a word, who is Airbnb their rental, what are some of the things that they can do to help make sure they're actually doing well in this rental market versus fighting that commoditization of their rate?
Well, the number one thing I believe is communication. Communicate with your guests, make sure everything is okay. You can do that on the Airbnb app. You can communicate that way. But yeah, communicating with your guests, make sure that everything is meeting their expectations. And on Airbnb in particular, it's very important to have good ratings. Often on Airbnb, like I've used Airbnb myself when I go different places, and the first thing that I look at is the ratings and the comments. And all it takes is one bad rating and one bad comment, and then people move on and try and find somewhere else. So you need to keep, and keep the ratings up. And Airbnb has a thing where you're a super host if your ratings are all good. So it's important to keep that super host status and communicate with your guests and keep them happy, just like everything else, really.
Well, and you bring up a great point. My wife and I recently just spent 2 weeks in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And to your point, we went through several places. We narrowed down areas that we liked. So we went from there. And then, we like the number of reviews that are of the best quality. So we are always, if there's 1,000 reviews that are 4.5 stars versus somewhere that is a 5 stars, we tend to look at the volume because it looks like more people. But the number one thing we do communicate or focus on is communication with that host. Because you're right, that really can offer up a really good relationship for you during your trip. And then, of course, reaching out to them, if you decide you want to come back, you can reach out to them directly. You can have that conversation as well. So I think is really important.
Exactly. It leads to further conversation in the future.
Yeah. So, Bruce, you mentioned communication, good ratings, cleanliness. I mean, what are the things that you hear, kind of a couple other second tier important factors that you're hearing?
Yes, I mean, cleanliness and responsiveness and things like that they're all on the Airbnb app, for example. But even people that are renting privately, it's the same thing. You have to keep the place clean. You have to keep it up to date, and you basically have to keep your guests happy in any way that you can. If something goes wrong, even if it's a minor issue, like a clogged toilet, let's say, but if something goes wrong, your responsiveness to that is very important. And that's something that guests look at. If you don't treat that problem seriously and let it linger for a couple days, then obviously guests don't appreciate that. If you're on top of it and deal with it right away, then that works in your favor as well.
Very nice. Well, and I think that's an important factor as well. So, all right, I'm going to kind of throw you a curveball. Different question. We've seen a lot of Airbnbs out here on the on the west side of town or west side of the island, Sandy Bay West. I was talking with one of your counterparts, Kyle, yesterday, and he was kind of commenting that there are some really great Airbnb options if you want something quieter, not so much in the West End, hustle and bustle, but on the East End as well, and that those are really developing. Are you seeing that as well?
Yes, yes, definitely. West Bay in particular and West End, basically the western end of the island is by far the most popular. And, that's one of the things that works well with rental properties. The best performing rental properties that I have seen are close to the beach in West Bay. Because that's what everybody wants. They're private homes, which again is what everybody wants, and close to the beach in West Bay. But the east end of the island is definitely growing and becoming more popular, in areas like Camp Bay, which, the beach up there is beautiful. So rentals in that area are starting to perform better as well. And I think, as the road there now is perfect, pretty much, it makes it easier to get there. And I think that is going to work in their favor as well. So there's lots of people that do want to be still in West Bay and West End, but there are also people that want to get away from it all a little bit. And that's what the east end of the island offers as well.
Well, and you bring up a great point. My wife and I were actually just having this discussion last night about, we're going to do a little staycation here around the Easter time. And we were looking at places out east. We live over on the west side and in West Bay. So we said, let's get away a little bit and go experience. So that's definitely in our mind as well. So
yes, we do the same. We go to Camp Bay quite often and have even stayed there a night or two a couple times. So it's been great.
Yeah, it's
good
wonderful.
Little getaway.
Wonderful. Well, Bruce, hey, thank you very much. This has been great. We always learn something new during these forums. Again, my name is Russ Regents, and this has been the Roatan Real Estate Roundup. My wonderful guest today has been Mr. Bruce Plunkett. He is one of the newer agents here. He's one of the more interesting storied guys, having a long history here working in the Oceanographic Institute. So, Bruce, thanks for taking the time, and we'll see y'all next time.
Okay, thanks, Russ. Appreciate it.
Yep. Take care, bud.
Thank you for listening. Remember, when you come to Roatan, one of the best ways to see the island and its beauty is a real estate tour. Reach out to RE/MAX. Listen next week at this time for the Roatan Real Estate Roundup on Blue Wave Radio.